enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show, a potential black swan or Trojan horse event. That's what they're calling this supposed comet that is supposed to be passing the sun as we speak. And there's a lot of conditioning going on for people to be prepared in December for a potential black swan event. They're calling this comet, if you haven't heard, this is how obvious and in our faces all of this stuff is, 3-eye Atlas, as in third eye Atlas, you know, the third eye that they're obsessed with, that eyeball that they're obsessed with. And of course, they use the letter number 3 and the letter I, and it just so happens to be 33 billion tons. Now, how you measure a comet that's supposedly millions of miles away, I don't know if they have a scale that they're levitating out in space, but we all know that they can't actually get into space. So it's just make believe. And what we have to do when we see these stories is look at what are they planning? What are they conspiring to do? Because there's a lot of things on the table here. There's tons of predictive programming, of course, with comets striking the Earth, which I'll get into. And as we all know, they're waiting to unleash Project Bluebeam, and they're hinting that this isn't really a comet because it grew a tail, that this could potentially be the mothership. And of course, Fox News is feeding into its audience that finally the alien technology is going to be revealed. The government won't be able to hide that aliens exist anymore. And of course, this is how the alt-right media believes these types of stories. They believe a little bit of truth, and then things like aliens, they think the government's been hiding from them, when in fact we all know aliens do not actually exist from outer space. We know that extraterrestrials are really code word for demonic entities. So we're gonna get into all of this stuff now, but you can't make it up, folks. 3-eye, 33 billion tons heading towards the Earth. So the story is that it just passed the sun on October 29th and made a close approach to Mars as of October 3rd. Scientists observed the comet showing unusual activity, but of course, conveniently, while this is all occurring, and we're supposed to be waiting for this thing to come around winter solstice, so we have it arriving for Samhain for Halloween, and then passing or potentially hitting the Earth right around Saturnalia. NASA just so happens to be shut down, so we're not getting actual information. How perfect for the narrative of keeping things hidden from us. As if we're supposed to believe NASA's actually shut down. So what? The government just shut down its massive child trafficking and drug trafficking operation known as NASA? We're supposed to believe it because we're still paying taxes, so we're still obviously funding NASA. And there's concerns now growing, even though nobody from NASA can give interviews. This is the psyop they're putting out there. Nobody from the government can talk about this comet because the government shut down. So we're all supposed to be left wondering. And then they give us these extraterrestrial scientists that keep popping up on shows like Joe Rogan and Fox News, as you'll hear in a few minutes. And all we get is news that NASA is activating planetary defense protocol, even though they're shut down, and won't give out interviews with anyone. And even Elon Musk has chimed in, saying that this is not a typical comet. So Elon Musk is chiming into the entire thing as well, feeding into the alt-right media that 3-eye Atlas is definitely not ordinary. If it were just a comet, a high-resolution image would have already been released, he said in a statement. And how many movies have we seen over the years preparing us for a potential comet event, which again, would not be an actual comet striking the Earth, which I'll get into in a few minutes with directed energy weapons, which they can easily simulate a comet striking the Earth by hitting us with a directed energy weapon. We have satellites sitting up in the sky, and we have what? We have these airplanes that could go so high up and just shoot laser beams from miles and miles away, which they can convince you is either an alien ship doing it or a comet actually doing it. We've had movies like Deep Impact, Armageddon, right? Night of the Comet, which is a good one over the years. I mean, Asteroid, Don't Look Up, Meteor, Asteroid versus Earth, even children being programmed into believing a comet will strike with movies like Ice Age, Collision Course. So the predictive programming is obviously there. But let me play for you Avi Loeb, who's a Harvard astrophysicist who is making the rounds. He's the only one really out there giving interviews. And he's showing up on NBC, on ABC, on Joe Rogan, because they're obviously preparing people for some type of event to occur in the month of December. The question just is, what are they conspiring for? But here they are giving you a little bit of information about the mystery behind this comet.
This comet's really cool because it does have that tail from the sun's radiation blasting it, but it also has a forward-facing tail.
If the sun is here and the comet is here, the sun sends the solar wind to the comet, the tail goes behind the comet. Guess what? This comet is at the reverse side.
But is it nature or something else? We're gonna find out soon.
Okay, so it's going to be a few weeks before 3-eye Atlas comes back into view. Right now, it is hidden behind the sun, and even during its closest approach, Earth-based telescopes are not going to be able to see it. What's worse, the images that NASA captured right before all this, well, we haven't seen those because of possibly the government shutdown, but our next guest has done more math, more calculating on every aspect of 3-eye Atlas than anyone I know. He is writing right now that if 3-eye Atlas is alien tech, this will be the make or break moment. The one and only Avi Loeb joins us now. He's head of the Galileo Project, founding director of Harvard's Black Hole Initiative. Professor, welcome back. So starting with these new images, what's going on with the tail? Is this now just a normal comet off-gassing, or as at least one of your colleagues has suggested, is this thrust from some sort of alien tech that's like maybe stepping on the brakes a little bit? What do you think?
Well, thanks for having me. We don't know the answer to that, and we better observe it, because aside from the anti-tail turning to a tail, which could have a natural origin, I actually wrote 2 scientific papers trying to explain it, but it's not a simple explanation, because we don't know if there is dust at all around this object. But even more alarming is its size, the fact that it's at least 1,000, maybe up to 1,000,000 times more massive than previous interstellar objects, the first and second ones. And so we have to monitor it. And gladly, yesterday we had an announcement by the International Asteroid Warning Network that will establish a campaign coordinating observations from all around the globe in trying to get as much data as possible about the motion of this object, because as it gets close to the sun, actually a week from now, on October 29th, it will be at a distance of 203 million kilometers from the sun. That is the best point to have a maneuver, to use an engine that would either give a thrust to the object in the direction of its motion, in which case it will gain kinetic energy, or do the reverse, in which case the object would break and perhaps even release some mini probes towards the planets if it's technological. So we would like to know as much as possible about its future path, about the nature of material coming out of it. It's the beauty of doing science.
So how interesting. Right now, you have to ask yourself, are you a believer that comets actually exist, that a comet could just fly out from out of nowhere, comet potentially hit the Earth? Well, people believe that just like they believe aliens, because they've been programmed into believing that spaceships from outer space, from Mars, from Jupiter exist, that life lives on other planets. When in fact, there are demonic entities, extraterrestrial demonic beings that exist out there in the universe that these people actually summon and bring forth, but UFO technology, this is government technology. And it's amazing to me that people don't want to actually believe that the government has these UFOs that they've built and they fly around and they create all this deception and they make people think that there's actually aliens on these ships that they're flying around. They've convinced people through mind control that these things exist. Comets can hit the Earth. Aliens can come visit the Earth. Movies like Independence Day, right? We see them over and over and over again. But if some event actually occurred, if we saw a laser beam or a city suddenly catch fire and they did a countdown and they told us that it was a comet coming, believe this, it is 100% likely that any type of strike on a city that they would tell you is a comet is actually a directed energy weapon. Everybody should learn from Lahaina how the government operates, how they could set these cities on fire in an instant. We saw how that smart meter operation ran in California last year. But for anyone out there that doesn't know, this is technology your government has. They don't have this technology to use against China or to use against Russia. This is so that they could simulate events against us.
Here, secreted away in a hangar, is a revolutionary aircraft. The Air Combat Command's USAF YAL 747. It's not the speed or how high it can fly that makes it so special. It's the cargo. The world's first airborne directed energy weapon, the airborne laser, also known as the ABL. Just mounting the ABL requires one of the most sophisticated and elaborate modifications in history. The entire nose section is removed and retrofitted, and the world's largest titanium plate is installed to hold the enormous turret-mounted laser in place. The ABL system is designed to find, track, and destroy an enemy target in the air and on the ground. It can loiter at 40,000 feet for 5 hours, refuel in midair, and destroy a target 60 miles away in less than a second.
You have only a microsecond to respond, and that's not enough time for any system to respond. So the laser's almost instantaneous. Aircraft don't fight each other at close range by dogfights anymore. That's because they fly with missiles, and the missiles today have a range of like 20 kilometers plus. So if you detect a not friendly aircraft that you wish to attack, you'll do so by radar, and you'll attack that when it's still well outside what I would call the range of old-fashioned cannons on aircraft. So we don't see dogfights close in now. What we see is missiles that are launched and go a distance. The laser itself has a speed of Mach 300,000, so it's 300,000 times faster than if I launch a missile from an aircraft. So in the future, it will not be aircraft in a dogfight. It will be aircraft at a distance being brought down by laser beams.
The Airborne Laser Project was launched in 1996 at a cost of over $1.5 billion. The weapon is projected to be combat ready by 2015. There's also the fear that it could trigger a super high-tech arms race.
So you can easily see how they could use fighter jets in the night where nobody would really see them. They could be high up. They could use a fighter jet and tell you that it's actually a spaceship using what? Things like Project Bluebeam, which we'll get into now. But don't forget the other narrative here that they can use if there is some type of directed energy weapon attack that they tell you is a comet. They can use it as a bioweapon. So they can say it's a biotoxin that came from an actual comet, that the microorganisms actually could have deposited viruses on Earth. So they could hit us with multiple things at once. They could strike with a directed energy weapon, tell you that it's a comet, and then suddenly tell you that there's people are getting sick from the comet, from the explosion. There's microorganisms in it. People need to lock down and quarantine. We need an immediate vaccine. There's lots of things that they can play into all this, and it seems like that's exactly what they're going to do because they're conditioning people with this comet now. It's been going on for months. Now it's starting to get bigger as we've gotten to October 29th into October 30th into Halloween, where they're telling you it just passed the sun. Next stop, Earth, right? So Comet 3I Atlas, alien spaceship hypotheses to be tested once and for all, because a lot of these guys are showing up on the news, on Joe Rogan, telling us that because NASA is closed conveniently, because we don't have good enough eyes on what's happening, that this could potentially be an actual mothership. And they're giving you these hints that the government's hiding something from you. They love to do this. It's manufactured, right? Oh, they're hiding something. Of course, the government's hiding a lot of things from the people. How they're a bunch of psychopaths who commit mass genocide on a daily basis. How they create bioweapon viruses. How they literally are involved in satanic rituals and the drinking of red liquid is really what they live for, right? There's a lot of things that the government's hiding from you. But when they tell you that, the government's been hiding this information from you about aliens, well, realize this. You're likely being baited. But here's the professor on Fox News as they start to tease the alien potential invasion that's coming.
Big news for stargazers. A comet making its way through our solar system, apparently growing a tail. So what does that mean? My next guess is a 40% chance that it is alien technology. Harvard professor Avi Loeb is with me now. Sir, good morning to you. Listen, when you say alien technology, people want to know, what are you talking about? So to you, professor, what are you talking about?
It's a blind date of interstellar proportions. We don't know what we are talking about because script writers from Hollywood are not as imaginative as the universe, and we just need to observe. That's my advice on any blind date. Observe the other side before you have an opinion. In this case, the object is anomalous because it comes in the plane of the planets around the sun to within 5 degrees, and the chance of that happening at random is 1 in 500. Moreover, it's very large. It's comparable to the size of Manhattan Island, at least a million times more massive than the first interstellar object that we discovered about 8 years ago. And so the question is, why haven't we seen a million small objects before we see such a giant one? And it also behaved in unusual ways. There was a glow during July and August, a glow extending towards the sun, and only in September it started developing a tail away from the sun, the way comets do. And it has also arrived from the direction of the WOW signal from 1977, a radio signal that we couldn't figure out that was definitely extragalactic. So it has a lot of anomalies, about 8 of them that I listed, each of them with a small probability. And my point is that although it may well be a comet of natural origin, it could also be something like a Trojan horse, a black swan event where we say it's very unlikely for a spaceship to arrive at our backyard, but nevertheless, we should keep that as a possibility because the implications would be huge.
Okay, I need a podcast to get through everything you just said there. But let me ask you a specific question. Put up number 1, guys. Third known interstellar object to travel through our solar system. It's categorized as a comet, not an asteroid. It travels 137 miles an hour. Unclear exactly how big it is. No danger of hitting Earth. I think it's headed toward the sun. So now I understand after reading about this, it has a tail, and then it disappears. And the tail reemerges, then it disappears. And smart people like you at Harvard are saying that this is a possibility that has the ability to slow itself down. Do I have that right? What would that mean?
That is could be the case when it comes closest to the sun, and that's the best timing, the optimal time for either slowing down or speeding up. It's called the gravitational assist by the sun, and we use it with our own spacecraft. And it will happen tomorrow on October 29th, 2025. That's when the object will be closest to the sun. The only problem is that it's on the other side of the sun. We can't see it. If you look at the sky right now, and it's hiding behind the sun, we can't observe it from Earth, perhaps for a reason. And the question is, will it release any probes in our direction?
Okay.
We just need to monitor it and observe it, because obviously it would have huge implications for our future if something like that happens.
You got it. Last one and a quick one. When do we know? Is it
in the coming months? It will come closest to Earth on December 19th, just 6 days before Christmas. And my hope is it will not send us any gift.
All right, that's my sister's birthday. 33 billion tons of it.
And of course, again, any type of alien invasion, for anyone out there that doesn't know, the origins of a gray alien, the origins of an alien. People weren't talking about aliens in the 1700s and the 1800s. This just became a thing when the television came out, when they started talking about Roswell and these things, right? Aleister Crowley wrote about Lam. Today, they call them angels and demons. Tomorrow, they will call them something else, which is aliens. The depiction of Lam, the channeled spirit that Aleister Crowley summoned, is the exact image of what we look at as a gray alien. So I'm not saying anybody out there that believes in aliens that you're crazy, that you're wrong. There's just a difference between spiritual warfare and then what they want you to believe. Because they never want people to believe in spiritual war and spiritual warfare that actually exists with demons and entities. They want you to believe, well, yeah, the Bible always mentions some of those types of things. We're not going to go into detail about exorcisms. We're not going to go into detail about demonic possession, right? But we'll tell you about is, there's some aliens that have been flying around in space because they want you to believe that they can go to Mars and they can go to the moon when they can't go to any of these places and they never have. So the other thing we need to look at is obviously Project Bluebeam. We know that they have the Project Bluebeam technology. We've seen some of the stuff online where we see AI depicting alien invasions, and it's insane technology. And remember, they're 50 years advanced in what they have. They can simulate things in the sky. I've shown you some of the stuff that we've seen over the years with drones and light shows that they put up in the sky that look so realistic in China and other countries, Beijing. Well, we obviously all know that Project Bluebeam could serve multiple purposes. They could fake a return of Jesus Christ. Now remember the narrative here in America, the Christian revival, the artificial manufactured Christian revival that they're creating around Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump, where a lot of these Christians are just easily deceived. They're mixing America with God and politics with God. They could easily be deceived into something where Jesus appears in the sky, which is one of the plans for Project Bluebeam. Or they could just simulate these alien ships up in the sky, of course, cloaking actual military aircraft that could be used to just send directed energy weapons down into cities around it. So for anyone that doesn't know about Project Bluebeam, here is a clip in more detail that everybody out there should listen to.
In 1986, while stationed at an underground installation near Boulder, Colorado, I was introduced to Project Skybeam by Lieutenant General Andrew Garris. I was then led down a corridor and into a large underground installation near Boulder, Colorado. I was introduced to Project Skybeam by Lieutenant General Andrew Garris. I was then led down a corridor and into a large hangar where a stealth bomber hovered only 20 feet above me. I stood there confused, and Garris looked over me and smiled, then asked if I was certain of what I was seeing. I replied, of course. What else could it be? I was then shocked to find out that this wasn't a real craft. It was a projected hologram. Since the early 1950s, scientists had been developing holographic technology, and over the years improved it to a state that we can only imagine. As I stood there staring at the bomber, which looked so absolutely real and solid that I could reach up and touch it, I contemplated the possibilities. What if this projection was 1,000 feet up in the sky? How would anyone know that that was an illusion? The Phoenix Lights craft, witnessed by 10,000 people, was the first grand-scale Skybeam test upon the public. They succeeded beyond expectations. In October 1938, Orson Welles unleashed his War of the Worlds radio broadcast in the American public. It was so realistically portrayed, vast portions of the population went into panic. Terrified citizens scrambled to evacuate the cities in droves. America had been easily tricked by very simple means. To amplify this response, those who are truly in power, not only our country, but all the countries on the planet, and who are the true purveyors of the depopulation process, have formulated the final stage of their sinister plan. In the year 2024, a global event will alter the course of mankind's future. The world will stand witness to a massive alien invasion. Thousands of projected holographic alien warships will blanket the skies, sending people into a global panic. Real military crafts within the holograms will inflict actual damage to the surrounding areas to sell the game. As a result of the ensuing human chaos, a one-world government will immediately form without any resistance from the people. They will be the new world order.
Enough people believe that something is real, then it is real in its effects. In social reality. In terms of the social reality, in terms of what people act according to their beliefs. Yeah. And that opens a question of, at two levels, perhaps something that we are creating ourselves, perhaps a series of images that we are projecting. I think Carl Jung came very close to expressing that idea in one of his books. Or could it be manipulated purposely by people who have the technology to simulate UFO sightings? And people say, well, of course not. Who would do a thing like that? Well, I would remind you that during the Watergate investigation, it was discovered that there was a plan originated in the White House to surface a submarine off the coast of Cuba and paint the second coming of Christ over the island of Cuba using holograms. Which is well within our technology today. The idea was that since there's a large Catholic population in Cuba, they would be so upset by this vision that this would saturate the communication channels, the telephone system in Cuba, long enough for an invasion to take place.
How interesting. I've never heard of that.
Well, I think that's classic in psychological warfare, but that kind of manipulation is well understood. And I have personally investigated several apparently genuine UFO cases where there was, in fact, manipulation. My conclusion, the conclusion of scientists working with me, was that there was, in fact, a manipulation taking place and that it was not a hoax on the part of the witnesses, but a hoax on the part of somebody much better organized.
I don't think there are any. At one time, I thought that there were, simply based upon documents that I'd seen while I was attached to the intelligence briefing team, commander-in-chief specifically. At that time, and even for many years afterwards, I did not believe that the government would use me in that way. I had devoted my whole life to government service. I'd been in the Air Force. I was in the Navy. I was a regular patrol boat captain in Vietnam. I had proved myself. I had combat ribbons with the V for valor. There was no doubt of my loyalty to my country. And maybe that's why it was so easy to use me, because I wouldn't doubt that what I saw was real. But over the years, I've done a lot of research. What I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere. There is lots of evidence, tons of it in fact, that there are a group of people collectively known as the Illuminati who want us to believe in some extraterrestrial threat from space so that they can cause a world government, bringing together all the people to resist that external threat. And the first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. It was a dinner for Viscount Nishiki of the Japanese Imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth as I was reading this almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917. And he said the best way to cause all people in the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception, there's no doubt about it. And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches. And it's a scam. That's what I can tell you. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real. But they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. They're owned and operated by the United States of America for one, the Soviet Union for another, probably Great Britain, Canada. I think the first really operable ones were probably manufactured in Western Canada, in the wilderness, in a place especially built to create those machines, like we created the Manhattan Project, and the same kind of secrecy surrounded it. So the technology is real. It's been kept secret. It's been used to promote this concept that there's an alien threat to this Earth. The cattle mutilations I discovered in my research are nothing more than what's left after the government does its secret tests on the low-level radiation leakage from its atomic weapons assembly plants and atomic power plants. It's a low-level radiation monitoring project. And if you look at what's missing in cattle, you'll see that it's just as clear as day. They take lips, they take the tongue, they take a 6-inch patch of skin, they core out the rectum, the colon area, where those kinds of things would collect if they pass through through the digestive system. On female cows, they take the udder to check for low radiation milk. This is being passed to the calves. And these are all grazing animals that graze on the grass where the radiation falls when it falls from the air. And it's just an incredible deception. And I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof.
Well, what about all the alien abductions?
They're not abductions. They're the results of a tremendously successful and very sophisticated mind control operation, all of which has been in development. Well, they started working on those kinds of things since before World War II. But they have perfected them. On my website, I have a patented machine that can read your brainwaves, can recombine them in a computer and send them back to you, and make you think things happened that never happened. I mean, you can't get a patent for something like that unless it really works. You have to prove it to the patent office. It works. The patent is issued. And this is just one of the things that's snuck by them. That hasn't, because when people invent things like this, they're sucked up by the government immediately, and then they're put behind the veil of national security and classified, and then nobody knows about them. But every once in a while, something sneaks by them. And when you do these searches in the patent office and the trademark office and in the copyright office, you come up with some real gems once in a while. That was one. Also, the congressional investigations into the intelligence community has revealed the existence of these programs, and there's no secret about it. It's documented. Project Artichoke, Project MK Ultra, MK Naomi. You know, you go on and on all day long, and you know, if you had the time to do it, you could lay out all the documentation, which is official government documentation, and prove beyond any shadow of doubt that's true. But that's what it is. It's not extraterrestrials coming down. The human body cannot pass through walls and roofs, or through windows that are closed. You know, this is all the product of the imagination and people's willingness to believe something because they want it to be true. I don't know why they would want it to be true. You see, because if it were true, these are not friendly aliens. They're doing some terrible things to people. If I were to kidnap somebody, pass them up through the roof, take them somewhere, perform operations on them, and then take samples of semen and ova from their reproductive organs and plant thoughts in their mind and all this kind of stuff, and then bring them back. That's where I'd be right now. In prison. It's kidnapping. It's criminal. It's a terrible thing. So there's a morbid sense about all this too, is that people want to be hurt for some reason. I don't understand that. That certainly is something that somebody needs to look at. Why do people feel that this needs to be real? What in them says I want to be abducted and abused and kidnapped and raped and all this stuff against my will? Because they seem to take some kind of satisfaction that this is happening. And nobody's talking about the fact that this is a terrible thing to happen. If I were to do that to you, you wouldn't be too happy, would you? But somehow it's okay if an alien does it? I don't think so. It's all bullshit. It's a lie.
The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us, to control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we were going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now, at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids. Against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Paul, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. He didn't mention the timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding him until it was already up there.
So we know they've been waiting to do a simulation with that. And that all obviously leads to what I was talking about in 2024, where the Vatican came out and they said, look, we're going to be the do-all, end-all with any type of supernatural phenomena that occurs, any apparition, any of that stuff. If Mother Mary appears in the sky, we'll tell you if it's really Mother Mary or if it's some type of government attack, which of course we know the Vatican is obviously at the top of the pyramid pulling government strings, so they're not going to tell you if it's Jesus Christ in the sky, unless of course it's a deception, because everything they're going to tell you is going to be the opposite. So remember, they came out and they said, look, going forward with the type of technology that exists, we're going to tell you what's supernatural phenomena and what's not. If it's God appearing to send a message, if it's the Virgin Mary appearing to give a message, we'll tell you, right? So the term Vatican apparition generally refers to the Catholic Church's process of investigating claims of visions of the Virgin Mary, also known as Marian apparitions. In 2024, the Vatican updated its guidelines for discerning such phenomena, creating a more centralized system to ensure transparency, provide support, and prevent spiritual fraud and abuse. Under the new rules, the supernatural authenticity of an event can be confirmed by the Pope as an exception, and the approval of public worship does not equate to an official recognition of the supernatural authenticity of the vision. So the Vatican obviously will be able to deceive many people, because people out there don't think for themselves. If the Vatican comes out and tells you that it's Jesus in the sky, these people will believe that it's Jesus in the sky. And the other thing to keep in mind is that we've seen more so than ever over the last decade the rapture movement. I'm not getting into anything about the rapture. Okay, this is not a. I am not a ministry, so I'm not going to get into what you believe if rapture exists or doesn't. I know everybody will argue in the comment section, as they always do. But we hear tons of these people in the alt-right media, especially like Julie Green, and these people who claim to get spiritual messages from God every day, which is incredible. I mean, we've heard about prophets in the past. We didn't know that every single day God visited these people and gave them prophecy to go talk on YouTube about as they rack up hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations because people actually believe that they're prophets. But nonetheless, the rapture movement is taking on a mind of its own, and they could very easily use something like this and say that people were taken into the sky and simulate this with blue beam as if they're getting, how many times have we seen in movies, right? The spaceship shines a light down and people rise up into the spaceship, and then you'll have that kind of a debate with the rapture. And of course, we've even seen The Simpsons cover the rapture in the past. We know how The Simpsons are at predicting events like this.
Leave your body, Seymour.
Oh, here's prison production.
Where did my Christian limo driver go?
The baby I chose to have baptized is gone.
It's the rapture, Shauna. Virtuous have gone to heaven, and the rest of us have been left below. Because we rejected God, tacitly accepting Satan, we must suffer through the apocalypse.
Why can I put my faith in science and technology?
So there's lots of things in play here. I'm not saying one of these things is actually going to occur. I'd be surprised if they're wasting airtime on programming and conditioning people. Nothing would occur in the month of December. At the very least, they could easily just say, hey, the comet's going down in Omaha, Nebraska, or somewhere where they have plans to build out, one of our smart prisons, right? And they need to obviously build these things out. They need to destroy to rebuild the Phoenix Rising. So they could easily do that, say that the comet's going to hit one of these cities, New York, right? And show you the vision or the image on the news. Because remember, people still believe that two planes took down a tower, and that was in 2000. right? We know it was a controlled demolition, so, we saw planes vanish into the building. Imagine what they could show us in the news now with the stuff that we've seen that I've covered over the years with, people creating deep fakes with AI, showing alien invasions, these music videos that show alien ships going into cities that look really, really real. They could easily do something like that and even show you a beam coming down from a potential mothership and say that that's what happened in the city. But of course, we know it would be a directed energy weapon, which most people don't know actually exists, and that's what your tax money pays for. And these directed energy weapons are not built to be used against enemies because our government is not an enemy to Russia or to China. In fact, all these governments are working together against the people, and these weapons that they're using and that they've created are going to be used against us, as we've seen in places like behind us. So we have 3-eye Atlas, which you can't make up. Third eye, right in your face, 33 billion tons. We've seen all of the programming over the years with comets hitting the Earth from Deep Impact to Armageddon, right? The potential bioweapons coming out from the microorganisms inside of the comet. Then, of course, they want to start talking to you about potential comets not just striking, but maybe because the ship grew a tail, could potentially be an alien, which brings Project Bluebeam into play as well. And don't forget about the Vatican there's a reason that they came out and said, look, we are going to be the do-all, end-all on any supernatural phenomena. We aren't going to let people get deceived, even though we're the deceivers. So if something happens in the sky, we'll tell you if it's a sign from God or if it's a sign from man, if it's a government doing it. Of course, they wouldn't come out and say, well, the government simulated that in the sky, it's a directed energy weapon. They'll tell you, oh, it's an alien from outer space. Or they'll tell you it's Jesus himself returning in the sky to send a message, and these people will believe it. And we always have to keep an eye on some type of potential rapture simulation. Because imagine what that would do for the faith of people who do believe that a rapture is imminent, right? If there was one that occurred in front of their eyes, where it really was just a simulation taking place, and they didn't go in the rapture, do you think that might break their faith in God? That they might say, you know what? I've been waiting, I've been believing, and there it was. I saw these people get lifted into the space, what I thought was a spaceship, but it was really the rapture occurring, and why didn't I go? Right? So there's lots of things that can be in play here, but clearly they want this story out there. And things are really quiet right now with the government shutdown. We're not hearing as much chaos, so you know that something's coming, right? It's the calm before the storm. We can all feel an event is coming, especially after September. We had Charlie Kirk, we had a bunch of school shootings, and now for the last couple of weeks, it's been real quiet. I guess the actual people in government shut the government down, so they had more time to perform their rituals underground because, well, it is Samhain. It is the festival of the dead, right? The end of summer, or as I like to just call it, ritual season. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Everybody has theories out there about what it is. I obviously am just giving you things to keep in mind, right? Because you don't hear many people talk about simulated directed energy weapons, and you certainly, people out there are becoming aware of Project Bluebeam, but you have to think in terms of, well, what can they simulate? They can simulate rapture. They can simulate, obviously, we know the return of Jesus Christ. They can simulate a lot of different things. They could use these, use the Project Bluebeam and simulate an alien invasion, and then just use directed energy weapons, which we know that they have, and then everyone will be convinced, oh my God, the aliens are shooting. I mean, look, it all might sound insane, but look around you. Look at the world right now. You don't think these people would buy it? Look at some of the events that have occurred that they buy. They buy the school shootings, right? They buy Sandy Hook. What else do they buy? They buy Trump's assassination. Somebody mentioned recently, oh, how could you think Trump's assassination is not real? I mean, you got to be joking me, right? If they see it on the TV, they believe it as real. And that's all that they need to see, right? Because remember, like I said, there's still people who believe that 2 planes took down 2 towers, and then conveniently other buildings fell down around there that no planes hit, huh? Go figure, right? Welcome to the world in 2025. They'll believe whatever they're told. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.